ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 121 of the MTB podcast, presented and hosted by Worldwide Cyclery. I'm Jared.
I am Jeff.
I'm Trevor.
You're really selling that, ladies and gentlemen.
You sound like Howard Stern. You have the best.
He has an olive oil
voice
voice
for this, like, ever.
Thank you, guys.
His olive oil voice.
Thank you.
It's impressive.
You know?
Well, let's talk about the content of the episode.
That's right.
In this episode, we will discuss Shimano recalling hundreds of thousands of cranks, checking tire pressure, back pain during riding, and pitfalls of swapping parts back and forth from bike to bike, and much, much more. And as you've noticed, we have Trevor on the podcast, filling in for Liam. Trevor's going to he's going to fill in a lot more often now. Hopefully, maybe just indefinitely.
Maybe.
And I'm going to retire.
Who knows? Hope not. You're pretty entertaining, Jeff.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, you did a great job last time. Everyone was stoked.
Thank you.
And so we're just happy to have another highly knowledgeable bike nerd on the podcast.
Let's do it.
Highly qualified.
Well. Highly qualified, too. Knowledgeable and qualified. I guess those should run in parity there.
Maybe even overqualified.
Probably. Speaking of being overqualified, how about Daniel's fun fact of the week?
Daniel's fun fact. Most elephants weigh less than the tongue of a blue whale.
I don't believe that or think that's accurate at all. That's just my 2 cents.
That is bold of you to say.
My first instinct is that just isn't accurate.
Okay, but think about the size and the scale of a blue whale.
They're the biggest
compared to an elephant.
They're the biggest.
Think about the size and the scale of an elephant.
It's tiny compared to a blue whale.
I've seen whales and I've seen elephants.
Yeah, but have you seen a blue whale? They're the biggest mammals on the earth.
It's the tongue.
How big could the tongue be? A blue whale is huge.
They gotta get plankton somehow, man.
I think there's going to be something weird going on here. Maybe the average elephant ends up being smaller because...
No, it's the mass. We're talking about the weight. I guess weight and mass are different, but we're talking about the weight. So think about like the tongue is a super dense muscle, right? Like the elephant as a whole. I'll tell you what.
We're gonna dig into this fun fact, and we're gonna follow up in the next episode.
I believe it. If Daniel presents it to me, I expect it to be
he probably
fully
just Googles
vetted.
Funny facts, and then he just finds one he likes and sends it to you.
You know, I think Daniel just has things just stuck in his brain he needs to just let out. For those of you who don't know, Daniel is the warehouse manager here at the West Coast store, and I work kind of side by side him in the warehouse, and he's always saying some funny stuff to me. And whether it's true or not, it's entertaining nonetheless.
It is always entertaining.
Yeah.
I believe it fully. I mean, but like you said, we could do some research.
We're gonna follow up on this one.
Yeah.
We ride bikes. We don't.
We're not dissecting whales.
Yeah, that's for sure. Speaking of hard to believe, can you believe Shimano is recalling hundreds of thousands of cranks? This is a big one.
Huge.
For the bike industry, that's pretty big. So I think to add some context, everything breaks in some percentage of everything. Everyone's seen everything break and have warranty issues. And typically, I don't know, what would your rough guess be? That's a safe amount of warranties for any one product, like less than 5%, less than 2%?
Yeah, I mean, as a mechanic, I see all of the
all the broken ones.
So I have maybe a different perspective than most people, but it's still not that many. It's here and there.
Small percentage.
But for Shimano to be recalling hundreds of thousands of cranks is kind of a big deal.
It's huge.
Considering Shimano cranks are generally the most reliable cranks, I would say.
They have a good reputation.
They have a great reputation. It's pretty simple.
And these are road.
It's a pretty simple.
Yeah, this probably doesn't apply to many people listening because this is luckily road cranks.
Yeah.
None of us that are mountain bikers had these snap underneath us.
No.
So I would much rather break the cranks on a road bike while torquing up a hill than I would landing on a mountain bike off of a drop.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's also like... That's just kind of mind-blowing that this many cranks had problems on a road bike. Like people are 4,519 incidents of cranksets separating.
And to clarify, so people know, it's the affected cranks are Dura-Ace and Ultegra models manufactured prior to July of 2019. So that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Bicycle Retailer has got a good article on it if you want to dig more into the specs, and also if you have those cranks on one of your bikes, they kind of talk about the serial numbers to look for to see if your cranks are included in that recall. But that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, when I think of cranks breaking, I think of like a old SRAM EXO crank or something, or a race face crank breaking.
Like a spindle, pedal spindle.
Pedal spindle coming out, or even if you just hit it on a rock on a bottom out or something weird like that, the carbon will kind of chip away and lose its integrity a little bit. And that's something that I would see is common. But for aluminum crank to delaminate like that is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it's all the percentage. If there's such a high percentage of these things, then it has to turn into a recall, and it's not just like, oh yeah, no, this is the accepted small percentage things that we'll call a warranty, and they're kind of one-offs. Like, no, this was a large percentage enough for them to recall hundreds of thousands of them. So that's wild. If you are listening and you have racked your nuts on your top tube because of your broken Shimano cranks, we'd like to hear from you.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I actually sold a bike with these cranks on it, so hopefully that guy's doing all right.
I mean, most road bikes that were sold prior to 2019 probably came with an Ultegra or Dura-Ace crank set.
Huge in the road world, so there's so many of them out there.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's nuts. But it is one of those things, like when a recall at that scale is pretty wild, but it is important for everyone to know that anything and everything breaks in some small percentage, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Don't freak out. Don't panic. Hope that it's not something really vital, such as handlebars, stems, cranks, pedals, because those are the ones you can end up hurting yourself if they break.
And this is another, I guess, lesson on why it's good to buy things new from Worldwide Cyclery. It's because you get a warranty with all that stuff. Depending on what the warranty is, you should be covered in case something dramatic like that happens. And the companies will most likely stand behind you.
Yeah.
Buying from exactly. Buying from a reputable retailer that offers a warranty policy that is well known for replying to emails and helping customers out is definitely important when these kind of things happen. Answering the phone, it's a tall order these days apparently in the customer service world, but I always honestly think it's kind of funny. Like Worldwide Cyclery is renowned for how good the customer support is, and I hate to say it, but I really don't think we do anything extraordinary. We just do a great job, and we answer phones, answer emails, take care of people. We're nice, we're rational, we're kind, we help out. But that is extraordinary because what we're being held to is essentially airline level customer service.
The ordinary is not ideal.
Dish Network, called Dish Network. That's kind of like the experience you get with a lot of other retailers in the bike world.
It is.
Which is wild.
I've been meaning to call Spectrum to change my internet and cable package for months now, and I've just been delaying it like every day because I dread it.
It's part of their strategy.
I guarantee it, because you call and then they're like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, I can do it. They try and talk you out of it.
Well, you just have to call and say that you got a lower rate, and then they'll lower your rate, and then you say, okay.
Oh. You got to threaten them.
It's a mess. Yeah. That's right up your alley, Jared. I could see you just love to be threatening someone.
I'm a super threatening guy.
Yeah.
I'm really good at scaring people.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's hilarious.
I know.
All right. What are we pulling into next here? Just jump right into listener questions, I think.
We might as well.
I think we might as well. We got some good ones. Man, this one, well, read it and then I'll make my comment.
All right. I was enjoying one of your podcasts when you discussed whether things should match Fox and SRAM, etc. You mentioned tire brands should match, which brings up a really important question for me. Should I leave my girlfriend? She is the nicest woman I know. Funny, good company, and generous. But she has a Tanwell Maxxis THF and a black Schwalbe Knobby Nick in the rear. Poor guy, man.
That's grounds for leaving, honestly.
Well, hold on.
THF and a Knobby Nick.
Didn't you recommend mismatching tires on the episode you were on?
Maybe, but I also think that if you have a Tanwell tire and a black tire, that's a big no-no.
It's even worse than having two different brands.
That's super bad.
Matching black.
That's tough.
It's at least the tires look the same if they're both black and they have maybe different logos. But if they're Tanwell and black tire,
I know.
No,
you could at least you have different brands. You could at least get away with some people maybe being they have to look a little closer to realize. But Tanwell and a black one, I mean.
Well, I will say that when we talked about some mixed matching stuff, especially tires, I think it triggered some people. Some people were offended, and a lot of people have brought it up to me.
Well, we're snobs.
Yeah, exactly. I think you do have to take that into consideration. Once you're really far down the path, you become a little bit more snobby. You start caring about weird little aesthetic things that really probably don't matter.
Yeah,
like mixed matching tires,
like having a matchmaker on one side of your cockpit but not the other.
I would never do that.
Square out of my skin just thinking about that.
That's completely fine, but it's also not.
No, it's actually not okay at all.
Yeah, style goes a long way sometimes. I mean, you gotta look good to feel good, and then you ride good.
100%.
That's the truth.
You know, man, I'm sorry about your relationship. I wish it could have gone better. I'm just kidding. I hope you guys are doing great.
Maybe he should be a good boyfriend and buy her matching Tanwell tires.
That's what I was gonna say.
That would be the best idea.
Like,
Ooh,
you need a
get her a gift
idea.
Yep.
Get her a set of matching tires.
She's probably an avid listener of another podcast saying, I'm considering leaving my boyfriend because he won't buy me new tires for my mountain bike.
He's noticed I have this issue but hasn't done a thing about it. So maybe she's testing you and seeing what you're going to do about it.
I also empathize with the fact that tires are kind of outrageously expensive.
They are.
Like, they're more expensive than car tires.
They are.
It's wild how expensive mountain bike tires are. So,
which also doesn't make any sense.
So if you're in the case where, you know, you had one tire and you're switching tires, but one wasn't worn out, so you put a different brand on, you're going to wear that one out and then swap to the other brand. Yeah. It's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah.
No one's judging you. And it's the Dr. Seuss quote. Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind.
I like that.
I like that. Everyone should live their life like that.
Mm-hmm.
World will be a better place.
And we might mind, but we don't matter in the case of judging your tires, because we don't actually mind is the thing.
Yeah,
we just would prefer on our own bikes to not have mix match tires.
Agreed.
So,
and you know, you can get in a pickle like that pretty quickly. Like, you know, if you have one tire that you really like and it gets worn out and you want to replace it, but maybe you want to get a different tire. But you still have one perfectly good tire. What are you just gonna let it sit? Or
sometimes you have a tire laying around in the garage and I mean, might as well put it on and use it. It's going to get worn down anyway. And then maybe start with a fresh set of tires when you're done with that tire.
Man of reason and logic.
That's what I do personally. But if I'm building up a new bike, there's no way I would mismatch brands.
No expenses spared.
No.
In that case.
No expense spared.
All right. Next question.
Trevor, you want to read this one?
Yeah, sure. I have a SB 165 and love it. I am drawn towards the Yeti e-bike, the 160E, but actually considering a smaller travel Crestline RS 5075, as it will be better suited for local trails. If I go with a smaller travel e-bike, I would convert my Yeti SB 165 to a full-fledged downhill bike. So also wondering your thoughts and recommendations for this process. Thanks in advance.
It's a pretty good dilemma this guy's got.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds like a sweet setup, having a somewhat shorter travel e-bike and then a full-fledged SB 165 turned into a downhill bike.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds awesome.
I mean,
I would like both of those in my garage.
Didn't you do something very similar to that?
I did do something very similar.
Yeah, you had an SB 165. That's a Yeti, by the way.
I did.
27 5-inch wheeled,
Yep.
165 mil travel bike.
Yep.
But some people, did you mullet yours when you did that? Or did you have a 27.5
so
on the front?
at one point I did have a single crown fork with a 29-inch front wheel.
Yeah,
and that
so
was a
it
mullet
was
setup.
mulleted.
And then with like a full Eagle drivetrain, but then I swapped it all out when I got the dual crown fork. I put the DH drivetrain on there, and then just used
So
it
you had
for
a fully fledged downhill bike.
Yeah.
fully fledged downhill bike.
How
Yeah.
many times did you ride it?
Oh gosh, a handful.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It was amazing, but yeah,
fully
you know,
fledged downhill bike.
maybe if I live a little bit closer to a bike park or something.
I would say if you live close to a bike park, having the 165 with the downhill setup like you have, like this guy is saying,
That's an awesome
would be
bike park bike.
amazing because you can carry speed everywhere.
Yeah.
That just seems like a really fun bike to have.
Yeah.
As far as the e-bike question, I think that having a higher travel e-bike is kind of nice. Although, because you don't really have to worry about pedaling up hills or having it be hard to pedal up hills because it's very easy to do that.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a lot of travel in the downhill. I would say go towards a smaller travel e-bike if your local trails like recommend that. Like if you're
what you ride most often and intend to ride with that bike are just not that gnarly.
If it's nothing crazy, then go with a short travel e-bike. But even then, I think still having a larger travel e-bike is really fun to have, even on small trails, because you're just ripping the whole time, and it's just fun to have a lot of suspension underneath you. And,
It is.
You know what he could do? He could sell the 165, get the Yeti 160E, and then buy a Yeti SB 120.
Oh.
So he'd have his light travel trail bike and his longer travel e-bike.
Yeah.
Both Yetis looking fancy in the garage.
You know, but I see the application for the full-fledged downhill bike for park days. Where you might necessarily want to
there's
ride
nothing beats that. That would be an awesome bike at the bike park.
And then you could just ride your e-bike for everything else.
Yeah.
Which I think is, you know, if I catch what this guy's putting down, that's what he's kind of going for.
Yep.
And kind of to your point, Trevor, like I rode the Crestline RS 7550 just around here, Dos Vientos, our local trails, which by no means is anything
longer
crazy.
travel one.
I rode the longer travel one on our local trails, which are pretty mellow, but I had an absolute riot.
It's
like
fun.
the best time ever. And it was just the way the suspension curve and like how progressive and like kind of poppy the bike felt. I was like, I wouldn't even go for anything less.
Yep.
Because you still have
way
that
more
extra
travel than you needed.
Way more.
Because it was powerful and well tuned and fun.
Without the
awesome.
negatives of having a full long travel normal bike, you would never want to pedal around a big 170, 180 bike around where you live, little local XC trails.
Yeah.
But with the e-bike underneath you, it's a blast.
Totally. And I still used all the travel. I was like, jumping off of side hits. And
you can just push harder and you get away with murder a little bit.
You totally do. And that was so much fun. Just hooting and hollering. That thing is an absolute blast. And I was like, this is stupid how fun this bike is. The crest lines are so good.
Yeah.
The other day, sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, as far as the 165 goes, the only thing I did was get a Fox 40, and then I got the Crown Race that is for it's an adapter, right? Because it's a tapered head tube, but you need that 1.5 inch Crown Race
for the straight steer.
Is that right? Or whatever. You need the Crown Race adapter, and that's like
inch 5
the
or whatever.
only thing I really did differently aside from putting a downhill drivetrain on it.
That was a cool bike.
That was a sick bike.
There's been some rad SB165 downhill bike builds that I've seen.
Yeah.
Nate Hills had one, didn't he?
He did. That was kind of what
The
inspired
red
mine.
boxer. Yeah, that looked really cool.
Yeah, what were you going to say? Something about...
I was just saying it was when just talking about e-bikes and this conversation and this guy's thing and what you guys are doing with e-bikes, it reminded me so many people that I know that are in business but aren't in the bike business are, oh, you guys selling a ton of e-bikes these days? Or what's happening with e-bikes? Because everyone who's not in the bike industry is kind of interested in what's happening with e-bikes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because over the years, as e-bikes have gotten better and better, our audience, like really true enthusiast, passionate mountain bikers, are not just converting to ride e-bikes at all, which I think a lot of people make that assumption.
Yeah.
They just have yet another bike in the garage that's an e-bike.
Pretty much, right?
It's like, that's what this guy's going to do. That's what you guys do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't honestly know anyone that's just kind of full-fledged e-bike only that just fully converted. Like, they just have one for this, and then they have a regular bike for that, and they always have usually 3 or more bikes at a time. So that's what the true enthusiasts are doing. They didn't just convert; they just had an extra bike that's an e-bike.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's fun for that use case.
I'm guilty of that. Like, I really enjoy riding normal bikes and kind of everything that goes along with that, the suffering, the fun, all of it. But I also really enjoy just the pure fun aspect of riding an e-bike. And also, like, let's say you're in the gym a lot and you like to lift weights too. Sometimes if you go to the gym, you can't really ride a bike the next day because you're too sore, your legs are too sore, you can't really push at all. But if you have an e-bike, you can ride the same amount or not, if not more.
Yeah.
And push on the downhills, have fun, get your legs blood flowing. It's just a really good process if you take that into consideration.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's fun.
Yeah. I love riding that just lightweight four-stall e-bike because I can do twice the amount of miles in the same amount of time. And if I'm working all day and I have 1 hour of daylight, I can really cover some distance on an e-bike, and it's super fun.
And with the lighter weight four-stall and even the shorter travel one, it's a lot more fun too because it's so light. You can really ride it like a normal bike, but have that little bit of assist and really just go fast everywhere. And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, those things rip. Well,
true that.
Read this next question. Is this a real question? Did you make that up?
Yes. If you wear cowboy clothes, are you really just ranch dressing?
Yes.
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 You are.
You are ranch dressing, and you're dressing for a ranch.
Howdy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
You're right. I love
Dress
that.
like a cowboy, really just ranch dressing. That sounds like the words from a country song. If you just dress like a cowboy, or really just ranch dressing.
Yeah, we could
Doesn't
write
it?
a song. We could
And
start
drink a
our
beer.
band. Drink a beer, ranch dressing. I like that.
Man. That's so funny.
On to the next question. Oh, nice. That was good. Hey, guys. Just listening to your latest podcast, and you discussed the importance of checking your tire pressure before every ride. My latest bike came with the Tire Whiz, and it is amazing. I'm able to check my tire pressure accurately without even getting out the tire gauge. It is awesome. This one wasn't so much of a question as just a statement saying how awesome the Tire Whiz is.
Yeah, well, a lot of people probably don't know that product exists.
That's true.
It's a Cork product, and it's basically a little battery and sensor that sits on your valve stem and tells you what your tire pressure is via an app on your phone.
Right, and it has a little flashing light on it, and it flashes green if it's within the
range
selected range
that
you set,
yeah.
or it's red if it's not.
Yeah. That is pretty cool.
Just shows to me the importance of tire pressure. It's super important. So many people overlook it, and the fact that there's a product for that specifically is super important. Even like, let's say you're out on your bike and you're going to go climb a hill way at a high elevation, your tire pressure is going to change pretty dramatically. Let's say you start in the morning, it's cold. You get to the top of a mountain, it's higher elevation and it's hotter. Your tire pressure is gonna go up like at least 5 psi if it's even more if it's a dramatic case, if it's really hot.
Yeah.
And that'll completely change your ride experience. Your tire's not going to work the way it is. Your suspension's not going to work the way it's intended to. So if you have your tire pressure within that range of like 28 to 24, 23 psi, it's going to make your whole experience way better. And it's a
valid point.
Something very simple that I don't think a lot of people check, but I think it's one of the most important things to do for your pre-ride checklist.
Totally.
Well, funny enough, they're a little pricey, those Tire Whiz things.
Are they?
But I mean, compared to just using your pump to check your pressure
or a gauge.
Yeah, that's what I mean, or a gauge. Yeah, they're definitely more expensive than a gauge or your existing pump if your existing pump has an accurate gauge on it. But I thought what was funny was we put the Cork Shock Whiz, which is a totally different product than the Cork Tire Whiz.
Oh, yeah, in Trend Products video.
Yeah, and that's the Cork Shock Whiz has been one of the top selling products. Fluctuates here and there for
years,
3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
That's an awesome little product to help you learn how to tune your suspension and dial everything in, and I think it's super educational for people. And we talked about that in a Trending Products video because it was trending the other month, and somebody commented and said, "Yeah, I got one of those Tire Whiz things on my bike, and it's pretty useless." And I replied, I said, "Well, we weren't talking about the Tire Whiz, we were talking about the Shock Whiz, but I got you, man. I mean, maybe he just doesn't."
Similar
Maybe
names,
he never downloaded the app.
Completely different purpose.
I just thought it was so funny because the Tire Whiz came with his bike and he's like, seems pretty useless.
I mean, if my bike came with it, I'm not going to complain.
Everyone's got their different opinion.
Like those Zip 3 Zero Moto wheels, they come with them.
Yeah, they come with them on there, yep.
Like that's pretty fancy.
It's a pretty nice little thing to have.
That is a nice thing to have, yeah. And I have a feeling that's the type of product that's complicated enough that if it just came on the bike you got, you may have not taken... I'm not making any assumptions here, but you may have not taken the time to learn what the lights mean, what color they are when they're blinking, and download the app.
It's possible. Luckily, those come stock on very nice, expensive Zip wheels. So hopefully the customer who's buying that would be educated enough to know like what they're getting into. It's a pretty advanced wheel.
Yeah.
So hopefully they know about that.
It's true.
Yeah. It's a cool product if you're want to pay attention to your tire pressure, which
the Tire Whiz is nice. I'm pretty particular about tire pressure, and if I'm doing a long ride, and especially here in California, it gets pretty hot in the middle of the day compared to the morning.
Yeah. And
sometimes, you feel your tires and they're rock hard, but I don't carry a tire gauge with me. I just set the tire pressure before I ride. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of the day, I just take a couple PSI out just based off of feel.
Yeah.
And I can't be super accurate with that. As much as I ride, it's still not accurate, and it'd be nice to really dial in with that.
Yep. Hopefully the Tire Whiz 2.0 does it itself.
Whoa.
You're like, always keep it at this pressure.
That would be
cool.
Inflated and deflated accordingly.
Sounds like some F1 technology.
It does. They have made those little air compressor pumps in a really compact form. Like the ones I have this little thing called the Giga Pump that I backed on Kickstarter 100 years ago. And it's tiny, and it'll blow up an entire air mattress. And it's literally small. It's
really?
And it has a little flashlight on one end too, and it's pretty cool. So those pumps are getting really small.
Last time I pumped up an air mattress, I spent probably 10 minutes.
Yeah, dude, this thing does it, and it doubles as a flashlight that hangs inside of your tent, and it's it's tiny.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Not even a quarter pound. Yeah,
future.
It's sweet.
They also have I'm pretty sure there's a wheel. Some startup also that has
it was at Sea Otter
compressor integrated into the hub or something, and then you could pump it up and deflate it based on your desired preferences.
Yeah, they have. I remember.
I saw there was in the Tour de France this year, the Jumbo Visma team was running something like that with their wheels, something attached to their fork that was adjusting their tire pressure.
That's crazy.
Mid-ride. And they won all 3 Grand Tours this year, so
wow,
something's working out.
Dang. Is that the riders, or is it the automatically adjusting tire pressure? I feel like adjusting a tire pressure on a road bike.
It's not like mountain biking. I mean, it's a little different.
Might not be as big of a deal, but
what
do I know? I'm not on the Tour de France.
Luckily, there's probably not any hardcore roadies listening to this that are ready to fight you right now.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Of course it matters.
All right, this actually is a good question, by the way.
It is. What was your first? You read it.
You're so excited.
What was your first ever screen name?
That's a good one. You're excited. What was yours?
Oh man, mine's random. Doesn't really mean anything. It was like something I had on Xbox back in high school when I played Xbox Live, and it was just Obe. It was just OBEH, and it's my pink bike name. It's nothing special.
That was available. There was no number on there.
No,
was it like
Obey it's kind of a weird way to say it.
Like obey me.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really mean anything, but
Obey.
What about you guys?
Mine was Moto XXX 340.
Oh, sick!
Nice.
Dang, mine. My sister helped me make it back in the day when AIM. What is there?
AIM.
Yeah.
AOL Instant Messenger.
Fox Racer 2214.
Nice.
Yeah.
You guys are pretty similar.
It's pretty sick, huh?
I don't even remember what my AIM name was, but I remember using that in middle school though, and it's a good way to talk to girls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Both grew up riding motocross, so I think everyone who rode motocross that was a 10-year-old kid always like their screen name for sure was Moto
Your
something.
Name is great.
Was it Moto XXX
340?
Damn, are you
at AOL.com. Well, Moto XXX for a while they had a Supercross team and they had all those good videos and it was a thing.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, it was like a whole legitimate thing.
Like Point X.
Yeah, like Point X. Yeah. The old Extreme Sports camp. That was a cool camp.
That was a cool camp.
Yeah. Didn't make it. Went out of business.
No.
Probably expensive liability insurance having a bunch of under 18-year-old kids doing extreme sports on your property every day.
Mega ramp and
Woodward's still around.
Woodward is around, yeah.
That's true.
That place is pretty cool.
Yeah. Gosh, that was so cool.
We should try and get them to sponsor a podcast episode, seeing as most of our sponsors...
Who, Point X?
No, Woodward.
Oh, Woodward. Like, I'm sure Point X would be down.
Speaking of ads, let's rip one.
Oh.
Legit sponsor.
And now, a word from our sponsors. Are you sick and fed up with super artificial gross tasting goos and gummies and gross things that you eat while you're out on your ride? Introducing Ollie's Organic Goos. We have a whole suite of really, really awesome, organic, delicious, natural supplements from our awesome flavors like... gravy goo, chicken flavor, beef flavor, and for all you vegans out there, mushroom flavor.
Well, if you are not interested in vegan mushroom goos, I would genuinely appreciate if you could check out Trail One Components. Trail One is a brand we co-founded and one I personally worked on crafting the founding team, which is allowing myself and our crew here to design the exact mountain bike components we have always wanted, and doing so with a ridiculously overqualified engineer. The idea was to create premium level mountain bike components that truly support the sport of mountain biking by giving back to trail networks with every purchase. We have a growing line of products which can be seen on the Worldwide Cyclery website as well as at trail1.bike. Speaking of which, if you use the code MTBpodcast25 on the Trail One website, you can snag 25% off your first order. That's trail1.bike and the code is MTBpodcast25. And one more quick thing before I go. We are currently hiring for several positions at our expanding shop and warehouse located just north of Reno, Nevada. If you or anyone you know might be interested, please let them know and please feel free to reach out. We would love to have new cool people join our team. Thank you, and back to the show.
And now, back to the show.
Remember like in Toy Story, they had like, I think it was Toy Story, they had like...
Oh, yeah.
I always thought that was
cool. Such a good movie.
Yeah, Toy Story was great.
Such a good movie.
Well, back to the listener questions.
Back to the listener questions.
Probably started at that Toy Story.
Yeah, now I just want to go watch Toy Story. But
it's a good movie.
We will continue with listener questions in the meantime. I just got my second mountain bike ever, and I have noticed my lower back hurts pedaling uphill on my new bike versus no back pain at first. What do you recommend upgrading in terms of handlebar height, lifted handlebars, seat, etc. to try and help with lower back pain? Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, are you looking at me because I have back pain?
I have back pain.
Yeah, no. Trevor has back pain too.
I have back pain.
Come on.
Well,
I ride often and experience back pain, and I don't know exactly why. I think it could be my own body, not really my bike setup. I think it's just I overuse my muscles sometimes.
Yeah.
But for this listener, I would say before you, especially on a mountain bike, before you try to upgrade your handlebar height, handlebars, stem, all that stuff, try playing around with your seat position. Could be too high. Could be that your pelvis is kind of rocking on your saddle, and it's kind of making your low back work extra hard. It's interesting that your low back hurts on one bike and not the other. So I would maybe recommend measuring out your saddle height on each bike and replicating that first, then going for a couple rides and seeing how that does. Yoga doesn't help or doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Stretching doesn't hurt.
I was going to say, like, my lower back pain typically sources from a lack of hip flexor stretching. And it just all accumulates in my hips and then pulls on my back and it just sucks.
Yeah.
And then I have to go stretch for like 20, 30 minutes to just
I think a lot of people that ride bikes are also by day desk jockeys.
Yeah, probably.
Us included.
Yeah.
Use a computer a lot during the day and sit down and then get on a bike. But when I saw this question, it reminded me, over the years, I've seen a lot of people that if they don't have back pain on one bike and they hop on another bike and they have back pain, it's usually because the whole front end is just lower and or longer. Like if you ride mountain bikes all the time and you hop on a road bike and go ride 20 miles, your back's going to be roached. You're just not used to being in that elongated and leaned over position. So a lot of people, to accommodate for that, just, put more spacers under their stem or get higher rise bars. So that could be the situation. Like when you go from one bike to the next, I think that's a pretty important thing to pay attention to. That YouTube video we made, high-rise mountain bike bars and why they're getting so popular. In that video, we really broke down and actually showed a lot of side-by-side video and imagery of what it looks like on the body to be basically on the same bike with flat handlebars, 20 mil handlebars, 35 mil rise handlebars, and it alleviates a lot of pressure the more upright you get. Just like imagine a beach cruiser versus a road bike. Those are the two polar ends of the spectrum. Yep. And so if this guy is having back pain on one bike and not the last one, it could just be as simple as one bike is, was more high up and his new bike is more lower and longer and stretched out. But I agree that the most cost-effective way to go about that initially is see if you can just move some spacers around to rise it up and mess around with your saddle. So that's because you can lean your saddle forward or scoot the saddle forward. Yep. That's the most cost-effective way to do it, and moving some spacers. Beyond that, you might want to try some high-rise handlebars or a shorter stem or both. But
speaking of your saddle, make sure that your saddle is either level or maybe even a negative rise for when you're climbing. If it's a positive rise, your body's gonna be fighting your whole body to not be falling off the back of the saddle, and you're just gonna put extra strain on your core and your lower back. So just make sure all the measuring specs are the same on each bike, and then go from there, I would say.
Yeah, I'm also guessing, just because he mentioned it's his second mountain bike ever, he's probably not measuring all of this stuff on the first bike versus the second bike, but that does become something as you ride more and more bikes. It is pretty useful to measure, the height of the handlebar to the ground, the height of the saddle to the ground, the height, just start measuring your bikes. And then you kind of get to know what bike is going to do what when you get on it and how you're going to feel. So that's just one of those things you end up learning, and it becomes more intuitive the more bikes you ride and the longer you ride. But a lot of people deal with back pain, even that are experienced riders, and it is a tough and challenging thing.
It's tough. I would say for people that do ride a lot, if it's not your second mountain bike, if you've been riding for a while, I would say just kind of focus on strengthening your posterior chain, so your back and your glutes and your hamstrings. Try and just get those strong and mobile, your hips mobile, and that's kind of your best bet to feeling good on the bike. Yeah.
And regular stretching is you can't do enough of it. I mean,
That's true. I think a lot of it also just boils back down to seat time too, just getting your body to adapt to it. Yeah. I mean, the same way if you always rode mountain bikes and then you started riding road and you're just like your neck is messed and your back is messed.
It's always the neck.
That goes away after a while. You just have to basically force your body into that whole situation.
This past weekend I did a 50-mile, like 6,000 foot road bike ride. It was the first road bike ride I'd done in a couple weeks. And I'm coming from riding mountain bikes regularly, and my whole upper back was tight and my lower back was hurting and my legs are shot, and it's something that you have to just do consistently, and the more consistent you do it, the more your body adapts and the more comfortable you'll be. But don't expect to be comfortable on the first ride.
Push through the suffering.
Riding road bikes is just such not a good position for the human body regardless.
It's really not good for your body.
You can try and adapt to it and, build muscle and stretch here and there, but like just look at the position of a road cycle. It's like that's not the way the human body was meant to be.
It's not natural in the slightest.
So bad. Yeah, it's so bad.
That's the worst. Like, oh my gosh, the neck, it's the first thing to go for me every time because you're just like hunched over. This.
Totally.
That's not natural.
Something I would recommend also is just that a buddy who's a very good cyclist taught me is just relax. Try to just relax on the bike. Kind of like you're in a bad position anyway, so you kind of feel like you're tensed up or whatever, and just try to relax your core, relax your arms, just try to relax, try to breathe, and that's going to really help your comfort on the bike long term.
Nice. That's good.
And just help your endurance too. Like that's a big difference in cycling and mountain biking and running too. If you can just like kind of relax and use only the muscles you need to use and not be tense everywhere else, I mean, you burn a lot less calories and less effort.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely.
Nice. Next question. I'm curious about the pitfalls of swapping components back and forth between bikes. Specifically, I have a giant Trans X29 that appears to be able to move components to a new bike of the future, Transition Smuggler, with the exception of C-Post. Can I, with relative ease, move components back and forth between bikes without much hassle? Mechanically proficient enough to get myself into trouble, that isn't much of a concern. Basically, the hope is that each bike will have a specific rear shock, chain, crankset, derailleur, shifter, and dropper post, but the rest will transfer over as needed. Handlebars, fork, stem, brakes, wheels, tires, rotors, cassette. Help. This is quite the predicament.
Yeah, it's tough.
I actually was in a similar predicament when I got that SB100 and I wanted to switch stuff back and forth all the time. And I eventually just bought all the stuff to have to stop doing that.
It's called capitulation. Just buy two bikes.
Buy two bikes.
N+1.
Yeah. So for me, I could see like swapping rotor, or, your two wheel sets back and forth, right? Like that's a pretty big expense. Yeah. Like I would buy the cheap stuff personally, like, stem and handlebar and stuff. But like, I don't know, because having to just like line up the handlebars every time, make sure it's straight, and like those little things, like put the brakes on, bleed them every time.
It's a lot of work.
That's tough. I would say the best thing to change between bikes, if you have one thing to change, it'd be the wheel set.
Yeah.
Because if you have the same components, you can just swap wheels from one bike to the other, same rotors and cassette and everything. Mm-hmm. But more than that, just takes a lot of time and effort and work. Like he's saying, the brakes, to change the brakes and keep the internally routed housing the same, that's just a pain, and you got to bleed the brakes every time.
Yeah.
He was asking if you need to bleed it every time. The answer is yes. You do need to bleed it every time. There's going to get air in the system every time you disconnect the hose.
Yeah. Pretty much need to do the whole system too, right?
Yeah.
If you're taking the caliper. Is that what he's
really
saying, right?
Careful, you could maybe just do a lever bleed.
Yeah, you can do a lever bleed and get away with it.
Really careful. If you're pulling the hose all the way out of the frame,
that's tough.
Then the hose has to stay like this. I think he was really tough.
Keep the hose in there, but swap. What did he say here?
Keep the internally routed hose to each bike, but move each lever and caliper.
Each
lever and caliper. So if you just take the lever off, you're gonna keep the system somewhat under pressure. If you take both the lever and the caliper off, the hose is just flowing fluid through it, and you're gonna lose all that fluid if you don't keep them up.
Right?
That's just you're gonna have to do a full flush, full bleed, and you're probably gonna still have air in there.
Yeah.
So I would say no go on the brakes. For drivetrain, I would say if you have an Axis wireless drivetrain, that would be your best bet. So it's really easy to swap stuff. Same with the Axis dropper post.
Yeah.
If you have that, you can swap stuff easy, just so you don't have to deal with internally routed cables or even externally routed cables. It's still kind of a pain.
Yeah.
If you're dropping all the money on wireless access drivetrains, what about just getting two mechanical GX drivetrains for even less?
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that he is going to basically have like a drivetrain on each bike, from what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's tough. I would say in short, two different wheel sets or the same wheel set for one bike will get you the farthest. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of work and effort for not a great end result. So it's tough.
Yeah, it depends on how much fun he has working on bikes.
Yeah.
Or initially does. Yeah, the first couple times I swapped all this stuff, I really had a good time.
Yeah.
And then,
time to go ride the smuggler.
And then my wife divorced me because I was in the garage for 14 hours every Thursday.
Because like I've done bike swaps to change over a specific bike to a very specific setup that I want to for like a race, let's say.
Yeah.
And it takes hours.
Yeah.
Like it takes, I would say, to get it right, to swap stuff over like 6 hours or so, or even more.
It takes a lot of time to do it right.
It takes a lot, especially the brakes. And internally routed cables, it takes a long time and a lot of effort.
And that's with proper tools that are always there and a bike stand and like a whole
and
shop setup.
I'm like, I already do it for my job, so I'm already very efficient and proficient at doing it. So that's tough. I would say maybe just two cheaper bikes maybe is a better option.
Yeah, just or slowly build up the components that you're missing on the one bike, right? Like maybe you ride the smuggler and you realize this is so much more fun than the trans. I don't even want to ride the trans anymore. And then that solves your problem right there naturally.
Yep.
But
maybe it's time to move on from the Trans X and just get a do it all bike.
Yeah.
Fully commit.
Do it all bike, change around tire setup, and that's all you have to change around.
Yeah.
And you can have a bike that will climb and also descend.
There you go. That's the solution. This guy should get the bike that does it all and have two different wheel sets instead of two different bikes and swapping everything else over.
Mid-travel trail bike.
Yeah.
That's the ticket.
Exactly. It's
SB
like a lightweight.
Those are fun.
Lightweight wheel set for the XC stuff, burly wheel set for the enduro stuff.
Yep.
There you go.
And then if you really wanted to, you could spend $1,000 on an older hardtail.
Yeah.
And then just have that for your fun bike.
That's true.
Let your friends ride that.
And that would be as much as your extra wheel set, probably.
Or as much as your time swapping the parts over.
Time is money. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Time is money. Don't forget.
And then you can upgrade that hardtail.
Soon enough, you'll have 19 bikes.
Yeah.
That's how it starts.
That's exactly how it starts.
Gosh.
Speaking of hardtails, how's your hardtail going these days?
I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The Y Cycles El Jefe, which is now
the El Jefe, which is now a Revel, yeah.
A Revel Bikes El Jefe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got it all dialed in, did a little maintenance on it, installed a new dropper post. That secret.
A secret dropper post? You got a secret dropper post?
Yeah, I got a secret dropper post.
Well, that's pretty cool, dude.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I kind of want a hardtail lately.
I've been telling you for, I don't even know how long, ever since I got that bike and you rode it and then we went for that ride and then you crashed right into the tree.
Oh, yeah.
When you're trying to do that crazy fakie on the tree.
Yeah, that was not a normal mountain bike crash.
No.
It was like a tree like this, and I was riding up the tree to go backwards and then...
Like a trials move?
Like a fakie.
Like a BMX
Like
move,
a BMX
really.
move,
Yeah, it was old BMX stuff. Just ride
cool.
up the tree, roll down backwards, and then pivot,
little
little
fakie
fakie
out.
roll out. Yeah. And the tree was like, went up, and then eventually it curved more vertically, and I did it a couple times, and I went too far up the tree, and I front wheel hit the more vertical part of the tree, and it just basically gave me a backflip.
Did you fall on your back?
Yeah, dude, so
Landed
bad.
right on his back.
Just knocked the wind out of
You
myself.
got the wind knocked out of you?
Oh, yeah, so
that's
bad.
the worst.
Just flat on my back, and I couldn't breathe, and then, still survived. I forgot that happened on that
That
road.
was hilarious. Ever since then, I've been telling you should get an El Jefe. It literally says
that would
Jefe
be-
on
that
it.
would
Yeah,
be a
Jared
cool
rides
bike.
you ride your hardtail all the time. You come in the
Yeah.
shop, ride from the house, go do a little local loop.
It's a perfect bike for this
Yeah.
area.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
it really
fun.
is.
Titanium. It'll be perfect forever. You can lean it up against something on the beach and have it fall over and it won't crack.
That's true. That is exactly what happened with my quote unquote gravel bike that had flat bars. That was basically a rigid mountain bike.
Yeah. Then you
But
can go do dumb
that,
stuff on
that
it.
frame broke or cracked from that rock on the top tube, and I rode it for almost 2 years.
You did.
You
don't
did.
recommend anyone I don't recommend anyone doing that.
What do you recommend?
Legal disclaimer, do not ever do that.
You could probably scratch your bike and it would look better.
It would. You can Scotch Brite it and it'll take all the scratches off and
Yeah,
stuff.
that
It's
would
amazing.
be fun. I've just been eyeing a cool hardtail. It just seems like a fun bike to have and just do a lot
So
with.
fun.
Hardtails seem fun if you have it set up like you have it with kind of big fat tires.
Yeah.
You have 2.6s on there?
2.6 Recons.
Yeah.
2.6 Recons, yeah.
Yeah. Although I've been wanting to kind of make it a little bit more XC, put some like 2.4s and like a, I don't know.
XC 2.4?
XC, yeah, 2.4.
What?
Yeah. No, just like a
Did you
faster
forget
rolling
what
tire.
XC means?
Yeah. No, I want to put like a Forecaster and Recon like your tire set up on your Ranger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then
Man,
like,
those new Forecasters. I'm in love with that tire. I was
I
telling you
know.
that the other day.
I still haven't tried it. He's on them now too.
Yep, I've got an update. I put dual Forecasters on my SB140. Rode it this weekend, and I was very impressed.
That's
I've never really been someone to
cool.
run the same exact tire on both front and rear. Although the front was a 3C compound and the rear was a dual compound. Not a huge difference, but it's still something. A little more grip in the front.
Yeah.
But I was very impressed with that because the setup I had before was a little bit more slow rolling. And now it's much more fast rolling, more efficient. And there's grip, seems to be there's grip everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty
not
crazy.
like
It's hard to explain.
not like the most grip ever, which is not really what I'm looking for.
Right.
But it's consistent grip everywhere, which is it's fast. It's fast and
it just
it's fun
feels
and
fast and predictable
and
and reliable.
It made my
It's
bike
cool.
a lot more fun to ride, to be honest with you. Like I would feel like I was being slowed down a little bit. I had like an Assegai in the front, like a max grip Assegai and an aggressor. And
Yeah.
with the dual Forecaster, it's kind of more what I was looking for just normal single track riding.
Speed, baby, speed.
Yeah.
I love some speed.
Versatility, speed.
Speed.
See, that's what I want.
It's a good tire.
I like the 2.6s, but like I feel like they don't really roll very quickly. But that's not really.
But you need that kind of 2.6 with low pressure kind of cush a little bit.
I do like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just
kind of need that with the hardtail.
Hardtail's
Hardtail's like
both.
Yeah, hardtails
know.
are tough with rear tires.
Yeah.
It's like a whole different world.
I want like the nice like supple low pressure high volume, but I also want it to be fast. So what do I do?
Really asking for a lot there.
I
bud.
want both. I want the best of both worlds.
you should probably try the Forecaster on that.
I want the Forecaster.
They make a
front,
2.6
maybe
Forecaster?
Recon rear. No,
Oh, no.
they do a
I don't
2.6
know.
dissector
I know.
though, which I thought could be good.
Good front tire.
Good 2.6 dissector, maybe Recon.
Keep
in the
the
rear.
Recon in the rear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2.6 or 2.4 Recon in the rear. I don't know. I don't know.
That's
try
the beauty is you can play around with it.
That's
You
true.
can experiment. See
Yeah.
what's the
Do you
best
want
setup.
do you want the Forecaster off the front of my Ranger?
Or are you gonna get a new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll take it.
Oh, I'm in for a fresh tire.
Perfect.
Jeff's always in
I
for
think
a
I have
fresh
100 miles
tire.
on that.
Perfect. It's all mine.
Got about 10 rides or so on that thing.
Perfect.
Gotta go.
That sounds like it's got my name
This
on
guy
it.
uses a tire for 3 rides and just will be like, I'll take it.
There was a, you know, what's funny is so this is how I went down that rabbit hole is when I was racing a ton and as a junior I was sponsored by Maxxis and they were just piling me all these tires. I was like, this is amazing. I always had fresh tires, which you totally need racing. So I really got used to just always having fresh tires and just loved it. And then you know, worked at a shop and I was like, oh, no problem. I'm just going to keep buying tires after I stopped racing. And then I started Worldwide and then, you know, pretty much didn't have any discretionary income for several years. And so then just kind of rode bad tires. And then finally I was like, oh, now I can just get fresh tires more often now. So that's what I do now. It's a guilty pleasure.
What happens when you
Always-
own Worldwide Cycler?
It's a guilty pleasure always
Fresh
having
tires.
fresh tires.
It's like your sole motivation to build Worldwide to where it is today was just so you could have fresh tires all the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much, right?
Pretty much.
It's a good time, man. Fresh tires. Nothing like fresh
Oh,
rubber.
Yeah.
nothing like a
On
fresh
your car,
tire.
on your
Nothing
bike,
like it.
whatever.
Yeah.
On a
It's
motorcycle, it's just the best thing ever.
Seriously.
It really is, dude. It really is. All right. Last question.
Last question.
Rip it.
Should weight be a concern at all when it comes to a park bike? I feel like too light and you might bounce around a little bit more, but be able to move faster. Too heavy and you'll be a bit slower with changing direction and such, but a little more planted. You know, I don't think it really matters.
I bet Trevor's thought about this a lot.
Yeah, I have.
I knew it. I knew it.
Because I took my 140 to the bike park and I had like I said in the last podcast, I had the bird wheels and I really did not want to run the bird wheels at the bike park. Those are great wheels, but they're not really meant for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's too light.
It's too light.
Yeah.
They're like some of the lightest wheels in the market, really. I want something that's going to be really stiff, really predictable, and kind of not really prone to braking. So that means not really having carbon wheels.
Yeah.
But for the overall bike, I think having a heavier bike gives you a little bit of an advantage at the bike park because you're purely focused on gravity orientation. So having a heavier bike with the best brakes you can possibly get, biggest rotors, best brake pads, all that stuff, really
Good tires, good traction.
good tires, really plays the biggest difference. And that'll in turn give you a heavier bike because it's what you need, the components you need for that. I see a lot of people running like kind of exo casing Maxxis tires at the bike park, which is really what you do not want to be running. You want to be running at least a double down or a downhill casing, and you'd be surprised about how much more confidence it'll give you. As far as something being too heavy, I think that's not too much of an issue. If you're strong, you can kind of move the bike around a little bit, and having it a heavy bike, like I've ridden e-bikes at a bike park and it's a blast.
Yeah.
Your bike kind of stays put on the ground. You're not getting deflected off of stuff. You're really just focused on where am I going to be braking, right? And if you have good brakes, it's not an issue. So I would say too light is an issue, too heavy, not as much of an issue. I mean, downhill bikes back in the day used to weigh a metric ton.
Yeah, totally.
So e-bikes nowadays are weighing as much as old school downhill bikes. So I don't think that's as much of an issue, and I think it could be actually an advantage to have a heavier bike at the bike park.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole of being a weight weenie on downhill race bikes, and I certainly found the limit. And once the bike is so light, a lot of it had to do with wheels and tires, though. So you could get away with having obscenely light stuff kind of all over throughout the bike. But if the wheels and the tires were too light, it really just felt as if you just slowed down too easily. You just got bogged down. You couldn't hold your momentum the way you should.
Yeah.
And that's where you just throw on a little bit more beefy wheel and tire setup, and just instantly the bike feels more confidence inspiring, just pushes through, carries momentum well. Plows more.
You want to plow
Yeah,
through
that's
that.
a good feeling at a bike park for sure. And the win-win there is that not only does it kind of feel better and work better at a bike park, but it's also just more reliable. You got, heavier wheels and tires, and you don't have to worry about blowing up wheels or tires. So that's kind of nice.
It's the last thing you want in the middle of park days. So you mess with a flat tire, a busted wheel, and your buddies are like, let's go do more laps.
Yeah, like remember maybe, I don't know, 7 or 10 years ago, those Santa Cruz V10s came out, and like I remember I was racing at Fontana at the time, and the whole team had Santa Cruz V10s, new carbon, full front and rear triangles with NV wheels and stuff, and I think the bike might have been too light compared to everybody else's bikes. They were good bikes, for sure, great bikes. I'm sure they still won a lot of races, but I think they could have been too light and maybe deflecting off rocks too much. You kind of want to plow through stuff, not get deflected off of things.
Yeah. Yep. I remember I knew a guy who had one of those V10s, like 26-inch, carbon everything, and it was like sub 30 DH bike. Yeah. And you're just like, wow. Okay.
How does that work?
Yeah. But then you're right. It's like you want the weight in the right places, heavy duty, burly tires. Like you don't want to be flattened or busting wheels.
Yeah, there's certainly a limit to it for reliability and just the way the bike feels. And, if you even look at the top level World Cup racers in downhill right now, if they wanted to, over the last 10 years, they could have demanded those bikes get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, but they kind of didn't. They kind of demanded...
They would never work.
Yeah, they kind of demanded more traction, better braking, better suspension kinematics. Like the things that the best racers in the world were demanding was not a lighter downhill bike. It was a better performing downhill bike that really was kind of the same weight.
And you need a bike that'll last you through the whole run.
Yeah.
3-4 minute downhill run that's really abusive. You need the wheels to hold up. You need the frame to hold up, and
the whole weekend
right? Even
and now they're strapping lead weights to the bottom of downhill bikes.
I don't know if everyone's doing that.
Well, a lot of racers,
some people are.
They're literally zip tying
there are some people doing that
400-500 gram weight to the bottom of their bike.
It is funny once you ride an e-bike that has the weight down by the bottom bracket, because that's where the motor is, and sometimes the battery too. It's like, wow, that actually does change the way the bike rides. With all the weight.
It's confidence inspiring, and the bike is stuck to the ground, and you just steer the ship, and
it feels like it's on rails.
It's so planted. The e-bikes are so planted, and that's part of, I think, what makes them so fun for me. Like especially in challenging terrain, is like you can just point and shoot an e-bike, and you're gonna come out the other end.
That's why I still think if the gearbox ever gets pulled off in a good way,
Yeah.
like that, the weight distribution of a gearbox bike is way more logical.
Like Phil said, unsprung weight.
Yeah, he's like unsprung weight,
unsprung mass, baby.
Yeah, so Phil on the Italy trip, he's riding a Zerod, as any Kiwi should, and the Zerod is a a gearbox bike, and they're pretty impressive. I think there's still some kinks and quirks that they need to work out in terms of just perfection to have it compete against how good the existing modern day non-gearbox drivetrain is. But if it gets there, I think that's going to be money.
It's compelling.
Yeah,
for sure.
And regardless of breaking derailleurs or any of that stuff, because that's not really a problem to solve. But to me, there's not many problems with modern day drivetrains. Like they're relatively problem free, and they're reliable. The issue really is like the next level up in terms of performance is just the weight distribution. Like get that giant cassette and derailleur, and now the battery on the derailleur, and move all of that stuff to the bottom bracket, and it's gonna that bike's gonna ride way better.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
I'm sure SRAM's working on it.
Yeah,
they're not unaware. they're very well aware of industry trends and what's going on and what makes bikes ride good.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like the bicycle is the only thing that has like the gearbox or like the transmission, whatever you want to call it, on the back, like at the rear wheel, right? Like everything else is like centralized,
exposed to the elements too.
And exposed to the elements. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess cars, like rear wheel drive cars, have whatever, you got your transfer case, and like, regardless, I mean.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of people, because before it was you never really knew what you were missing because you didn't have, unless you rode a gearbox bike, which are far and few to find. Yeah. But now that e-bikes came about and a lot of people have ridden e-bikes, they go, oh, whoa, this is pretty awesome with all this weight right here.
Yeah.
So, and even imagine an e-bike that had a gearbox too. It'd be even...
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense.
Doubly affecting.
Totally.
Make a lot of sense.
Yeah, one even day. Like a downhill bike with a gearbox would be amazing. But wasn't he saying something about how you cannot pedal under load?
You can't shift and pedal at the same time.
You can't shift and pedal at the same time.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay,
and you have to have a grip shift.
Yeah,
because it has two cables that run out of it because it needs a push-pull cable situation. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's not like it's not perfectly competitive by any means yet, but it's really close.
Yeah.
For some people that might be a good thing, but I feel like a lot of these products are developed under a race setting, and that would never be competitive under a race setting.
Totally,
that delayed shifting thing, you got to be able to shift exactly when you want to, and that's tough.
Especially with SRAM transmission, where you can just be pedaling as hard as you possibly want and shifting at the same time. And then you have somebody with the gearbox. Oh, wait, hold on just 1 second.
Yeah, it's just not competitive at the moment. But there's times where that's an advantage, right? So if you're bombing a hill and then all of a sudden you see a steep chute, you can just go whoop and shift all those gears without having to pedal. And then you're in the right gear instantly when you hit that uphill. So that's a cool feature of it.
For sure.
But yeah, it takes just getting used to. But yeah, as it is now, it's not really perfectly competitive.
Yeah.
But it's making progress. So one of these days, man, gearbox bikes.
Yeah. I wonder what happens.
Could
like
be
if
the
you're
future.
Shifting with a gearbox and you don't do it at the right time. Like, do you just grenade the thing? Like,
we'll have to ask Liam. I think it just doesn't shift, or it just like really like gives you a clank. I don't know,
it doesn't.
He rode a Zerode.
It just doesn't. I haven't ridden one, but I've worked on a couple, and it just doesn't really want to shift.
Okay.
Like it kind of gets stuck in your hand. It like once you let off pedaling, then it kind of will let you shift. But if you're just pedaling and wanting to turn it, it's not going to want to turn. So you kind of have to let off.
Interesting.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you all that are listening and watching want to hear more about gearbox bikes, let us know, because Liam did ride one and's got more experience on that thing. So we should talk more about him because it is pretty cool and interesting. Anyways, that's it. That's all. Boys, let's go eat some dinner.
Let's do it.
Thank you all for listening and or watching, and we will see you in the next episode.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Peace.